Good morning, everyone. So this is my senior capstone proposal, and my project is titled Feeling at Home in Children's Literature. So this is just a little bit about me. My name is Serah Florendo-Iboshi. I graduated from Pearl City High School, and I am a transfer student from Leeward Community College, where I got my AA in liberal arts back in 2021. And then I transferred here to UH West Oahu to study creative media, and my concentration is just general creative media. This is an overview of what I'm going to be going over today. First, I'm going to be talking about my plans for the senior capstone project. Then I will be telling you my thesis statement. And following that, I will go over some objectives and rationales behind my research that I conducted this semester. And lastly, I will address the significance of my proposed project. So first and foremost, my senior project will be a children's book which highlights and empowers diverse family structures and local culture. I felt that this was an appropriate direction for the research that I was conducting this semester because it addresses the low representation of non-traditional families in media, including books. So my thesis statement is improving the representation of diverse, non-traditional family structures in children's books presents transformative opportunities, but also faces challenges in the world of children's literature. So this is some of the rationale behind my research. First and foremost, it starts in my childhood. I grew up with a single mom, and we also lived with my grandparents. At the same time, I went back and forth between my family and my father's family as well. So it was kind of non-conventional. So when I was a kid, I remember all of the TV shows and the books and stories that I would hear. It only showed one singular idea of family, which was the nuclear family unit. And this, a traditional nuclear family consists of a mother, father, and their child or children. So I guess it was kind of a weird area for me when other people would ask me, questions about my family, and I had to have this whole explanation for it. And as I grew up, I realized that this was not just an experience I had, but many of my peers experienced this as well. Fast forward to this summer of this year, and I began working at a children's summer program. And I saw my own experiences happening to these kids. And it inspired me. It made me a little bit sad, of course, but it also inspired me to look more into this issue in order to prove that there is a lack of representation and that it has negative impacts on children, which they might take into their adulthood as well. But I also wanted to use my research as a chance to learn about the positive ways that I could use books to impact children and adults. So now I'm going to be going over some of the significance of my project. Number one, the dominant image of a normal family has always been a mother, a father, and a child. And this is a narrative that has been pushed many times, not only in books, but in other forms of media, such as television. I have an example on the right of the Berenstein family, and it's a very popular children's book. So when we have only this one image of what a family looks like, there can be some pretty harmful future implications when there is a lack of representation, or even worse, a harmful and stereotypical representation of one's identity. This can lead to people having low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. So I want to counter this. I want to counter this norm, and I want to provide diverse stories to help to raise a generation of children who are more aware and accepting of differences. And in addition, I want to help the children who are growing up in these non-traditional households to feel more accepted and to spare them the feelings of outcastedness that many people have experienced. So as I was researching my topic about the lack of non-traditional nuclear families, I also came upon another important issue, which was the lack of locally published books on our own bookshelves. So the creation of a book that empowers non-traditional families while showcasing local culture and ethnicities will allow children to feel a sense of familiarity and belonging in their communities and families. Additionally, it adds to the pride and visibility of our unique perspectives living in Hawaii. I think it's my dream that every classroom, library, or bookstore we'll have like a bountiful of local stories one day, because this is the kind of things and images that we relate to when we're reading or watching television. And I think that having more of our unique perspectives could encourage writers to do the same as well. And lastly, a super important one is that books have the ability to shape a child's identity and outlooks on the world and much more. Yeah, there are lots of functions that children's books can have if we give children the quality time to think about them. So many of the books, unfortunately, that do feature diverse storylines face censorship and bans. Um, a, a really hot topic in today's atmosphere are the inclusion of race and sexuality in stories. And one of the goals in my books would be to include at least one depiction of a same-sex parent household. And I know that that could face backlash, but I really want to fight for this. And I think that these types of stories deserve to be told. Um, I think that diverse stories that include these different types of families, such as maybe kids being raised by single moms, or kids being raised by two moms, or kids being raised by their grandparents and aunties, will help to raise a more aware and compassionate generation. And these are the kind of traits that these children are going to take with them into the adult world as they foster relationships with their communities, as they develop their work ethics. So I think it's extremely important to build this foundation now for children. So next I will be going over some data. I have a little bit about culture and ethnicity and also about the family structures as well, because these are both issues that are going to be involved in my final project. So Asian, Pacific Islanders, and Native Americans or indigenous peoples are some of the groups that have been historically underrepresented in media. And Pacific Islanders are actually the least represented in children's books, with just 0.05%. And this is highlighting our culture, which has over 2.5 million people, which is a really sad statistic to think about, because our our children here, I think it's really important that they see a little bit of themselves in the books that they're reading. So it's relatable, and they feel like they belong. Um, and now going into more of the family statistics. So single parent households make up of 21.9% of Hawaii's population as of February in this year. And 34,000 families live in multi-generational households here as well. So, and this is not just a big thing on our islands, but it's actually part of a national trend. Currently, 60 million people live in multi-generational households, and this is due to many different factors. Here, like you could say, one of the factors that we have lots of multi-generational households is because our concept of Ohana does not just pertain to like a mother, father, and their child. As we know, we can include our aunties and uncles that aren't even related to us at all. Yeah. Um, and there are also factors such as the high cost of living. It makes more sense for people to live in households like this, where maybe there are three different generations in one house. So my target audience, of course, will be children, and also their families that do not fit the typical image of nuclear family. Additionally, I would also like to reach children and families who do have that experience, because a book that highlights an experience that is not necessarily their own can help them to gain a new perspective about the people that do have this experience. To get a little more specific though, my book, I'm still tentative about this, but I'm trying to target children in grades K to 2. So kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. I still need to work out the language regarding that, but that's the plan. And of course, people living in Hawaii. And while my main target audience is children, of course, I will also have to target the family members, the teachers, and the librarians, because they are the ones who are going to be actually picking up this book to hand to a child. So my proposed solution will raise awareness of the existence and normalcy of non-nuclear families. This will help children from those families to feel validated and accepted. And like I mentioned earlier, for the children who do have the typical nuclear family, this can help them to gain a new perspective and to be more accepting of differences. It will also gain to the field of diverse children's literature, which often faces challenges such as censorship and book bans, as I mentioned earlier. I think our stories are super important and deserve to be told. This will promote diversity and acceptance in our community. And at the base, it'll make children who read this story to know that their families are valid and that they are loved. So this is an overview of my process for next semester. In the pre-production phase, I will be doing a lot of story planning, whether that is about the plot or like drafting out maybe ideas of scenes that I have in my head. And I'll be doing character sketches as well. And another fun one is I'm going to be experimenting with different mediums and colors that I want to include in my book. And while I'm doing this, I also will continue to study and pick out like popular and local children's books just to see what, what we like, what catches the eye of a child. And in the production phase, which is when I will be actually illustrating and writing, doing text arrangements on the physical paper. While I do this, I actually had an interview with my elementary school librarian this semester, and she provided me with some really insightful information about sort of what the kids like. So I want to be continually communicating with her and other librarians as well, just to see if I'm going in the right direction or not, if kids will like what I am producing. And lastly, post everything. Final edits are going to be done, and I would like to get a physical copy of this printed out, and if I'm lucky, maybe even a possible reading with a small group of children. So this is the plans for my deliverable. I want to feature multiple different types of family structures on each page. Still working that out, but I also wanted to, in the pictures, I wanted to have familiar local background scenery and icons so that people are able to relate to it. If you're reading a book, if you live here and you're reading a book about snow, it's like not relatable. But if you see a shave ice truck, it's like, oh, I know what that is. So I think it'll make it more fun. And I this was an idea that the librarian I was speaking to told me to consider. In addition to just highlighting different types of families, she also mentioned that one thing I could do to actually get it related to school curriculum is to have it centered around a cultural event or holiday because um, she told me that what some of the first and second graders are learning right now is about communities and the practices that we do. So this could be a way to get that into the classroom setting. And this is just an example of a really good book I found. It's called The Big Book of Families by Mary Hoffman. And this was one of the first books that I've ever seen that depicted these different types of families. We have like two moms, two dads here. We have grandparents raising the kids, and that is ultimately sort of my goal. Yeah, it's a really great book. So that's all for now. Thank you. Any questions?